So slowing down. So again, speed, doing too much speed, slow down. Smoking weed to medicate your anger, take a look at your anger, make it into art. Express it. Not by destroying things, though I suppose chopping wood could be useful. All right, slow down, pay attention to your body's wisdom or your own wounding, and apply the correct healing. So for example, if there's a splinter, this is a metaphor, but an actual splinter, take the splinter out. So if it's a glass splinter, make sure you get all the glass out, because blood will obscure it. And is there still pain? Had that happen. You actually had the wound close up and there's still a glass splinter and it hurt to what, right? So had it taken out, because like it might heal. Personal, family, or multi-generational trauma, even if you don't know its causes or the entire story, you can read its effect in grief, guilt, shame, and how it is medicated. Alcohol, opiates, etc. You can actually tell what the feelings are, and this is actually a technique we teach when we train drug counselors. You can actually tell what the feelings are by the drug they're using. Alcohol and opiates are usually used to medicate some kind of shame or pain. There's often, frequently, some form of abuse that is driving the alcoholism, like they've been abused or they've been hurt. So personal, it happened to you. Family, it happened to those related to you. Or multi-generational trauma, happened to your folks. So even if you don't know the causes or the entire story, you can read it if you know what to look for. But basically, I've just given you the meme. Okay? Drugs are feelings. Processes are feelings. Got issues with money because you came out of poverty, so you simulate being rich by gambling. That's what gambling's about, the power of money, trying to feel powerful, feel in control. Feel in control by people who are trying to take your money. All right, so what is the feeling? The question to ask is, and this is a meme to dissect the meme of addiction, what is the feeling the drug or process is attempting to heal, assuming there's been wounding, which is again, a meme in itself. There might not actually be wounding, but that's a good place to start, because that's where people usually don't want to look at. Yes, I got boo-boos, somebody said to me today, but that was a long time ago. That was 50 years ago. Is that still going to run me? Maybe, maybe not. But it maybe taught you a lesson on how to deal with similar things. So name those feelings, those hurts. Look at how they change intensity or change form as well as combine. So that's the idea of using memes. Those boo-boos get together and they multiply in secret, and they kind of teach you their own lesson, and they combine. Okay? So when you think, for example, of polyaddiction, the cure, like with polypharmacy, has to be meeting the goal of the addiction with a healthy behavior. That usually takes longer than using the drug. That's why the drug is so tempting. You Americans want everything like last week. We Americans, okay? I'll admit. So, addictive behavior is goal-oriented. If it's lizard brain, the goal is immediate, relieve the discomfort without looking at long-term consequences. So the meme is looking at long-term consequences. So what we're trying to do is replace it with a skill of self-soothing, being able to sit with the discomfort and let it go, watch it fade away. You might not have known you were holding on to it so tightly because you thought it looked good on you. I do it so well. So, fourfold way is one model. So 4 ways of the fourfold way. The warrior, show up, be present. The right use of power, where power is the capacity to be effective. The healer, pay attention to what has heart and meaning and extend love to where there's a love vacuum. Visionary, express creativity and vision. Tell the truth without blame or judgment. The teacher, model wisdom, be open to outcome but not be attached to outcome. And then the shadow addictive sides of the fourfold way. The warrior is addiction to perfection. So perfection, so the meme of this addiction to perfection perfection equals flawlessness. Now, because of that meme, where it's addiction to the concept that perfection is flawlessness, you can't have anything if you're a warrior that's addicted to perfection. You can't show any flaw. It's like in the 12-step program when they talk about your look good. You always got to look good. And keep that look good up. That's different from excellence. Excellence uses mistakes as a mode of improvement. You want the flaws. I'm a jazz musician, so you turn actually the flaws into a new work. You're improvising anyway, so if you're improvising and you're playing and you make a mistake, make the mistake look like part of the act. Actually use it. So the shadow side of excellence and the right use of power. So then the shadow side of that is the wounded child of the north. Rebellion, authority issues, patterns of invisibility. That is where you are not being invisible necessarily by choice, because you can actually choose to be invisible, not draw attention to yourself by being simply present. Or shutting up. That's the pattern of invisibility. So showing up and being present, but you're not necessarily having to throw your weight around. But the shadow side is the wounded child of the north, rebellion and authority issues. I gotta say something, because this is a clear motif with people who have been raised by the system, and there are a lot of them. They have authority issues. They do. Okay? So, the meme I use with authority issues, because I sympathize with them, ask, question, authority with respectful but hard questions. And there's a second part to the meme. Okay? So, question authority. Definitely. Question authority. Ask hard questions respectfully. And the second part is have an or the answer before you ask. That's how I test whether authorities are respectful. Do we come up with the same answers? I mean, I'm an authority, right? Okay? So I don't ask questions that I don't already have the answer for, not because I think I know everything, but it should be a basic thing where how are felons supposed to get jobs in drug counseling if they have drug offenses? And you're barring them getting work. They have experience. They're in recovery. They pay their debt to society. Let's train them to make professional choices. Sometimes they're barred from that. Who thought up that rule? How do we put them to work? That's just one example. Okay? Gun control. It's not just aiming what... I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but oh well. Gun control is not hitting what you're aiming at. What if access to firearms, in order to get access to firearms, not only would you have to pass a first aid test up to the level of EMT, but you also have to train for it. Just like a samurai sword. You earn the privilege to be able to kill. But before you can earn that privilege, you have to be able to save life first. Then you get the ability to kill. Because cultures, you don't just get a samurai sword as a consumer choice. You earn it through training. And the ability to demonstrate that you don't actually need it. And then you get it. In America, it's just a consumer choice with no moral code or anything. So what if it wasn't? What if it was an earned privilege? Only gained after you demonstrate your ability to save life first. You don't get to take life until you can save life. I know, it's crazy.
You can almost say the same thing about parenting, though.
You could, yeah, a parenting license. Wow. The shadow side of the healer, addiction to intensity. So this is often why I often suggest to people who are strung out on meth that you need to look at your feelings. Because the drug suppressed your feelings. You became strung out on intensity thinking that that was life. So the wounded healer, addiction to intensity, the shadow side of love. The wounded child of the South, basically neediness, being a martyr, various forms of addiction, self-medicating. So not just ingestive addictions, but process addictions is the wounded side of the healer. The healer isn't looking to their own wounding. They're just taking care of other people without necessarily being in balance themselves. The visionary. Visionary sees and can tell the truth without blame or judgment, but they can also fixate on what's not working. So, for example, this would be the shadow of the 4 ways of seeing that Angie talked about. Intuition, that means an inner teacher. Insight, perception, vision. So this is the wounded child of the East. You deny your own truth, deny your self-denial, and have a false sense of false self-esteem. Should close the. And the teacher. Addiction to the need to know, the shadow side of wisdom, being dogmatic, righteous, critical, arrogant, the wounded child of the West, positionality, and what positionality means is holding a position and not moving from it, not just a physical immobility, but a mental immobility, having judgment and having control issues. So if you remember, the meme of the teacher as being open to outcome, not attached to outcome, using different modes of wisdom teaching to reach the student and to demonstrate what you know. And teach by what you don't say, not necessarily what you do say alone. So, in order to think outside the box, you have to recognize that there is a box, and there is a box that you're in. So the box contains what you've been taught in what we refer to as the matrix of domination. That is, you are what you buy, you are what you own, you are your history, etc., etc. That's all that stuff that's in the box, and you don't necessarily think outside the box, but you also exist outside of the box too. So in other words, your stuff that's in the box, your identity, who you are, your history. So in order to think out of the box, you have to recognize that there is a box and that you can get out of it. You can expand beyond it. And part of, the reason I use Angie's book as a meme, because there are I already described myself by a non-English word, which essentially means that gives me permission to be a storyteller, a poet, a historian, a musician, spoken word artist, an actor, etc., 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 as well as a diplomat, as well as healer. There is no English word that encompasses all that, or native and African words that encompass all that. So, I'm already outside of a Western civilization box to begin with. So, outside of that cube, there are geometrical mathematical forms that go beyond that, the central box. And I often use this as a meme metaphor for people, for demonstrating that people are already multidimensional. All human beings are already multidimensional, but usually they're just comfortable with staying inside the box. But part of what they don't necessarily recognize is that your idea of who you are has been shaped already. Maybe you want to do the shaping yourself. Just saying. Right? So, you have to know that there is a box to get out of. So if you look at the central cube, now this structure is called a tesseract. I don't know if you ever read the Madeline L'Engle's time travel series called A Wrinkle in Time that came out in the 60s, and probably one of the, that's certainly one of my favorite books from that time. There was a piece on NPR that, it's like 50 years old now. Right? So tesseract, this is a 4-dimensional tesseract, and I should be showing you other dimensional tesseracts shortly, but so if you see this form, that's actually fairly easy to see that tesseract, also known as a hypercube, is basically showing you that there's a cube. These are simplified versions up here because what you don't necessarily see is that, and it actually is a reality, there is that object on every square on both sides of every square that you see. Well, you can't see them, they're not represented because that's fairly complicated, but I'll be showing you a graphic that actually does show you that and looks even more complicated than this. So, these ones, you can see fairly clearly what they are. Can you see this same shape here? And here? Maybe yes, maybe no. I'm just telling you it's the same shape. And you can teach yourself to see the different facets and different dimensions of that object there, just like you can see the different facets and dimensions of yourself. Looks weird, feels uncomfortable. That's okay. Sit with the uncomfortability. Fasten your seatbelts. Now, one way of putting this in psychological terms is that you can take that basic medicine wheel concept where we talked about mind, spirit, body, emotions. Okay, take that basic construct, make a square. Mind, body, emotions, spirit as a square.